In the meantime, Charlie Gasparino has been following these developments out of Saudi Arabia about who's going, not going to this financial confab. Apparently, virtually anyone has decided to say, you know what, we're just not going. But that's not quite the case. What do you find out?
Not even close to the case. And the most duplicitous firm on this whole issue was Goldman Sachs. David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, yesterday came out as we were reporting that junior executives were likely still to go from Goldman Sachs to the Saudi conference, despite the murder of journalist Khashoggi. He comes out and says, and tries to basically say nobody is going from Goldman, and with the weasel word using the notion of no senior executives are going. So here's what we know.
And that's what he said.
That's what he said. And he was expressed outrage by the killing, and, you know, Saudi Arabia has to answer for this. I mean, we're going to write this up on foxbusiness.com. You get to see all his statements. Here's what we know as of right now. Goldman is sending representatives to that conference. Wow. These are representatives from their Riyadh and UAE offices. They are going as of right now. Now that may change by the end of the day because we reported this, and they're going to get embarrassed, and people are going to look at David Solomon's comments in the context of incredibly misleading statements that he made. But they are going, despite the fact that he told CNBC, he tried to tell CNBC no one was going. And the fascinating thing, he was so adamant about it, the wire services, the New York Times, and everybody is now reported today that nobody's going from Goldman Sachs. That's how adamant he was. That is not the case.
What about all these other firms? I mean, I can understand the CEO or the CFO.
Now they are being less duplicitous. What they are saying, what officials at Morgan Stanley, at Citigroup, at J.P. Morgan, what they're saying is they are likely to send representatives at this conference to the conference. They'll make a final decision today. Two firms, Blackstone and BlackRock, say nobody is going. So they're being completely upfront saying nobody's going. Blackstone, run by Steve Schwartzman. BlackRock, run by Larry Fink, with significant business interests over there. So why is Goldman playing this game here that, we're not going to go, but they are going to send people? Because guess what? Saudi Arabia, the royal family, has a lot of money. They do a lot of investing. And next year, they're going to have probably one of the biggest IPOs in the history of IPOs. They're going to IPO their sovereign wealth fund, Saudi Aramco. Goldman Sachs wants to be part of that IPO. They desperately want to be part of that IPO. That's why David Solomon is willing to go on TV and say, no senior executives, this is horrible, but probably call up the Saudi Arabian and say, don't worry about it. We're sending representatives there. We're going to have our guys at the conference next week, despite the fact that a journalist was murdered by probably by one of your people. That's what's going on. You know, I don't mind the fact that companies are playing this safe.
Right.
Just don't get on your high horse, which is exactly what Solomon did yesterday. Go back and listen to that CNBC interview. Now, the interviewer, just to be honest, wasn't smart enough to sort of parse through his language. I mean, you know, he kept saying, Dina Powell, the former Trump administration official, now working at Goldman, no, she's not going. No senior executive, but let me make it clear, no senior.
Are any of these people in the region, like from here and elsewhere, considered senior executives?
You can Orwellian double talk around. Well, they're not senior. They're not in New York. They're from the region. You know. So I mean, that's what he's essentially doing. Now, this all may change today, when people start writing about their going and they get embarrassed. I doubt it will, because they so desperately want to be part of this IPO. They so desperately want.
You don't want to be the odd person out and not get.
This IPO is going to be huge,
sure.
And it looks like, and what's interesting, their arch rival Morgan Stanley looks to maybe have a leg up on it. That's the talk on being one of the.
Well, let me ask you about that. What if the end result of this? I was talking to a former State Department official earlier who was saying they're obviously going to do something. The Saudis are going to respond to this U.S. pressure, where we're going to have. You know, some pound of flesh being demanded here. But in the end, if the Crown Prince stays, he doesn't go anywhere. And we can't control that kind of issue. I understand that. But if he stays, no matter what punishments we exact, and the father says, look, I know I have 12 other sons.
Right.
He was the one I picked to run the kingdom. He's going to continue running the kingdom. I've wagged my finger at him, told him, don't you ever do this again, whatever. Is that really going to be enough to ease the tension here?
I could just say this. Why is Saudi Arabia doing an IPO for their sovereign wealth fund? Don't they have enough money? Don't they pump a lot of oil? Well, there's something known as fracking in the U.S. We don't need them that much
It's a
anymore.
very different position than during the 70s.
Than the 70s. We don't need them anymore. And, you know, given technology and electric vehicles and all the technology, they need to diversify their economy more than we need them. And from an economic standpoint, we can exert a lot of pressure. Listen, we can't dictate change around the world.
Right.
We can also, but what we can say from an economic standpoint is if we don't need you that much, we can screw you. And I think that's what they're facing, particularly in Congress. I can't tell you about the Trump administration. Donald Trump, the president, puts out mixed messages with the Saudi. He obviously is aligning the country with Saudi Arabia as opposed to Iran. But one of the fascinating things I've read, you know, I've just from doing this story, you look at what Saudi Arabia does vis-a-vis sponsoring terrorist activities and sort of not bad players across the world, and look at what Tehran does, the Iranians, it ain't that much different.
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia has financed ISIS, and you know, I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff going on in this region. And if we're going to pick sides, we're going to pick them as our I guess proxy in the Middle East. They have to live by some rules because they don't have the type of stroke economically anymore. That's why they're doing that IPO.
And then there were these separate reports that King Salman is very, very worried about the royal family itself. Now, these issues have come up periodically with civil unrest and the like. You know, but they've got a tenuous grip as a group on power.
And they have a tenuous group on the power of the country. One other thing I'd like to make clear, I'm not saying the Iranians are a great regime. You know, we all know what they do.
Absolutely.
65, America has a 65% approval rating from average Iranians. I mean, it is a very secular society, aside from the nuts that run it.
Right.
We don't have that type of positioning inside Saudi Arabia. Just so you know.
Interesting. Very interesting. Charlie, thank you very, very much.